2 of eMath instruction. This is the homework about the circumference of a circle. So the formula that we are going to, there's actually two, if this starts writing anytime soon. Okay. All right, so one is the circumference is equal to pi times the diameter. Other that I don't really use too often is the circumference is equal to 2 times pi times the radius. I tend to use this one more.
Mama, guess what?
So number one, which of the following is the circumference of a circle whose equation is x squared plus y squared equals 100? So if you remember, in this equation, that 100 actually turns out to be the radius squared. So r squared is 100. And using that, we can get that the radius is the square root of 100, which is 10. We want the diameter because that's what I'm going to use to find circumference. So if the radius is 10, then the diameter is twice that, which is 20.
That's me.
Which means that the circumference would be the diameter 20 times pi. So it would be number 3. Number 2, the distance around a circular dance hall room is 135 feet. So it's telling us it's 135 as the circumference.
Yeah.
So which of the following is the closest to the longest distance across the hall? So it's asking us what is the diameter. So to do this, what I'm going to do is go to my calculator, and I'm going to type in 135. And this time I'm going to, instead of multiply times pi, I'm going to divide by pi. And I get 42.97, which is pretty close to 43, which is choice number 4. For number 3, in the following shape, 2 semicircles have been placed at the end of a rectangle whose length is twice its height. Which of the following gives a length around this figure in terms of the semicircle's radius r? So it says that this part here is twice this part here of the rectangle. So let's call, now if you look at this blue part, that's actually the diameter. So the red part would be twice the diameter. Now, since the diameter is also 2 times the radius, we can also call this blue part 2 times the radius, which then means this red part would be 2 times the radius, or 4 times the radius. Now, in order to figure out which one of these we're dealing with, we want the distance around the figure. So this red line is 4r. So there's another one on top. That's another 4r. So we have 8r in total. So then next, let's talk about the circle. Now, this pink part would be 1 radius, and the circumference would be pi times the diameter, or 2 times pi times radius, because it's twice radius. So one of these would be just pi r, but we have 2 of them. We have one on the left and we have one on the right. So actually, we're going to use this 2 pi r. So we have 4r plus 4r plus 2 pi r. So that would give us a grand total of number 1, 2 pi r plus 8r. The next one, number 4. A regular polygon has 15 sides. The distance from its center to any given vertex is 12 inches. Which of the following is the best approximation for its perimeter? Now, I know they probably do it differently in the lesson. For me, I would say that this is close enough to a circle where we can use c equals pi d. to get a good approximation. So again, if this is let's call this the radius. So the diameter would be 24. So what I'm going to do is on my calculator, I'm going to do 24 times pi to get a good approximation of the circumference. So 75.39, which number 2. All right, number 5. A metal ornament is being designed such that its perimeter is created by 4 identical 3/4 circles as shown whose centers are connected to form a square. The ornament, both circular and square portions, is made of wire that weighs 1.8 grams per inch. Square has sides that are 4 inches long. So determine the total length of the circular portions in terms of pi. Show the work that leads to your answer. So it does tell us that a side of the square is 4 inches, which then means this portion, I'll draw it in pink. If the whole thing's 4, then that part is going to be 2, which means that the radius of each circle is 2 inches, which means the diameter of each is twice that, 4 inches, which means that the circumference, now I know these circles aren't full, but if they were, the circumference of each one would be 4 pi. Now it does say that these are 3/4 circles. So that means if we break this 4 pi, and there's a bunch of ways we could do this, but basically 3/4 of 4 pi, sorry, let me back up a little. So I'm going to multiply 3/4 of 4 pi. That means that 1 3/4 circumference is going to be 3 pi. Now we have 1, 2, 3, 4 of those. So in terms of pi, we have 4 times 3 pi. So this pink portion is going to be 12 pi. And then that's the answer to this letter A, because it's asking for the circular portions. Determine the total length of wire needed, both circular and square portions, to the nearest tenth. Now, it is saying, and it did tell us that 4, 4, 4, and 4, so that's 16. 16 inches for the square part, plus 12 pi for the circular parts. And then I'm going to type that into my calculator. So 16 plus 12 pi, 53.69911. I believe it said to the nearest tenth of an inch. So 53.7. Determine the total weight of the ornament. Now this is where we have to use this right up here, this 1.8 grams per inch. And we're going to set up a proportion to do this. So line equals sign line, 1.8 grams in 1 inch. So how many grams in 53.7 inches? Now we could cross multiply. There's a bunch of ways we could do it, but 1 times x is x, and then 53.7 times 1.8, I'll do on my calculator. 53.7 times 1.8, 96.66, but it says to round to the nearest gram, so 96.66 rounds to 97 grams. All right, and then finally, number 6 deals with arc lengths. Semicircles and quarter circles are types of arc lengths. Recall that an arc is simply part of a circle. So determine the arc length to the nearest tenth of an inch. Now I might do it differently than they do it on the video lesson. So what I would do here, first of all, this is telling us that we have a 90-degree angle, and that means that we're dealing with a quarter of a circle. So how I would do this is, if the radius is 6, that means the diameter is 12, which means that the circumference, if this were a whole circle, would be 12 pi. Now, we're not dealing with a whole circle, we're dealing with a fourth of a circle, and I know it's a fourth because 90 degrees out of 360 degrees reduces down to 1/4. So the circumference would be 1/4 of 12 pi. So if I divide this by 4, then this would have a circumference of 3 pi, which, if I do that on my calculator, would be 3 pi 9.4 inches. Okay, explain why the following proportion would solve for the length of AC, 130 over 3. And it's kind of what I brought up right up here. Let me highlight this. It comes down to this, and it's basically setting up a proportion or a ratio comparing the angle given to you from the total. So given, and then this is the total. This is what we want to find, and 12 pi would have been the total. So I don't know how you'd want to put that into words, but it's a comparison. It's comparing what you want to find or what's given to you compared to the total circle. Oh, and then it just says to solve this. So we could solve this proportion. 360 times x is equal to 130 times 12 pi. No, 130 times 12 is 1,560 pi. And then we're going to divide by 360. And this says to the nearest tenth of an inch. So (13.6 inches. All right, so I know I probably did a few things differently than I did on the eMath video, but hopefully this is a little bit of help. Hopefully you're doing all right. We'll see you soon.